President Donald Trump speaks candidly to the Christian base about North Korea, Russia, tax reform, and ending of Obamacare. It's going to be a very encouraging interview. As a matter of fact, check it out. Well, a wonderful interview by Pat Robertson of President Donald Trump. And it's so encouraging to see how friendly our president is to the church and to Christianity. For so long, for over 8 years, we had a president who had an adversarial relationship towards the biblical principles and the church itself, it seemed, on so many occasions, including Israel. But now we have a friend of God, a friend of the church, a friend of Israel in the White House. I really believe sometimes you think about Donald J. Trump, Donald Jehu Trump. It's almost like the spirit of Jehu is coming in to be able to deal with past things that had happened. But the first thing we want to ask, this is a question that the president's answering. What problems do you see facing the world right now? Let's go to the White House.
Well, we have many problems, and I was left a very, very tough meal. I will say that, Pat. It was a mess, and I think we're doing very well. But North Korea certainly is a big problem. The Middle East is a total mess. Yeah. Other than in 5 months, we have done more against ISIS than anybody's done since the beginning, and we're having tremendous success with that. But I would have to say Middle East is a tough situation, but we're getting it straightened out, and ultimately we want to start investing money back in the United States at our home. Yeah. But we have to get rid of ISIS. We have to get rid of the terrorists, as you know better than anybody. And the other is North Korea. We have somebody that is... We will find out what he is. We're going to find out. And
this is so important. When you think about North Korea, we're seeing these ICBMs fired off, these missiles. I think it was 17,000. It went above our space stations. How high it went? The missile they fired off, which could potentially reach Alaska and Hawaii. And it's like, what are we going to do about this? This is a question they're asking. That Pat Robertson's asking President Trump, and listen to what he says.
Well, we wouldn't want to be speaking about anything, but we're looking at lots of different ways. We're working with other countries, including China. I think China would like to see this problem go away. It's a big problem for them. And, the advantage we have is trade. We have big trade with China. And I have a very good relationship with President Xi, who I like a lot. And I think he likes me. We were just spending a lot of time together. And they are very strong with regard to, as you know, with regard to North Korea.
Will they get tough with North Korea? I mean, I know that you were so close when he was there to visit Mar-a-Lago.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. I mean, I would say that we had a good chance. They had an election where President Moon got elected to South Korea. Yeah. He has a much different attitude or a much different take on how to handle the situation than his predecessor in South Korea. He's perhaps softer on the issue, but maybe not, because I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a strong person and I think he's got strong views, stronger than people would understand. So we'll see how it all works out. I think China wants to help us. We're going to find out whether or not they do. But China would, in my opinion, like to be able to help us.
What's our leverage with them?
Well, our leverage with China is that China makes hundreds of billions of dollars a year with us on trade, and I want to renegotiate trade deals. But I would certainly be a lot easier in a trade deal if they were going to help us with North Korea than if they weren't. So we're going to see. The relationship is very good with China. It's very good with the president of China, who's a terrific person. We will find out whether or not they want to help, and maybe they do and maybe they don't.
It is so important for us to be able to deal with North Korea there in that particular part of the hemisphere. Some of the reports are that China's responsible for 90% of their trade, which means basically their oxygen. They could cut that off if they wanted to. And so we have a lot of input in regards to our economy and how we're doing with business with China to be able to deal with North Korea. And some of the things the Lord has shown us prophetically in regards to Russia, China, and North Korea, they had some sort of pact, made agreement, even against America, and the Lord showed us prophetically, and against the American dollar. And we're looking at something happen right now. We're wondering what that really is. But it seems like they're kind of drawing us over there. But we'd much rather deal with North Korea there in their own home territory than over here in America, because the Lord said to Isaiah Ramos, he's part of our crew here at VFNtv, in a prophetic dream, talking specifically about North Korea and what would happen. And notice when he talks about it, it was right when President Obama left the White House and flew off in a helicopter, just like he did, and all of a sudden there was a threat, and the threat was going to be North Korea. As a matter of fact, let's go there now. This is a time when Isaiah Ramos was on the set sharing this prophetic dream. Take a look. I'm so excited we have Isaiah Ramos here with us on the program. Hey, Isaiah.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
Well, this is amazing. We're seeing what God's doing right now. But before we talk about what's taking place in North Korea, before I tell you what's taking place, what our vice president just said in South Korea, I want you to share what the Lord told you specifically about North Korea and Kim Jong-un, who's the president or the leader or the tyrant that's over North Korea. Tell us what this night vision what the Lord gave you. What did he tell you?
Well, okay, so in the dream, I'm with a couple friends, 2 friends. It's me, my friend, and another friend. And we're walking in this neighborhood, and we're really young, and we're just walking by this garage, and we look in the garage, and I see a TV and some papers, and it looks like they're discussing, people are discussing something. So I kind of got scared, so we all went back. So then there's 2 people, Kim Jong-un, who I didn't know the name at the time, I just recognized his face, and his translator. The translator looked at me, and he asked me, do you swear on your God that you didn't see what you just saw? And I said, no, I can't.
There was something they were hiding in that garage.
Yeah, so basically...
This is Kim Jong-un's interpreter, translator telling you this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're basically just looking at him, and then they're talking, the translator and Kim Jong-un is talking, and they said, we're going to take you, and we're going to beat you, and we're going to abuse you.
Wow. And they do that to a lot of their people. I think 3 or 5 generations they take. If somebody converts to Christianity, they take 3 or 5, maybe 3 generations and put them in camps and abuse them out there. They literally abuse them in these camps for making a decision to follow Christ.
Yeah, that's horrible. But so continuing on with the dream, I'm suddenly in D.C., Washington, D.C., and I had 2 friends with me, and now there's only one friend with me.
So you're talking about a dream, a prophetic dream that God's given you, and all of a sudden it just shifts, and now you're in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I only have 1 friend with me now, so I'm thinking like they're probably taking us out one by one. So we're going into the White House, and basically everyone's just taking us, like Secret Service, everybody's just taking us around the White House and just hooking us up with equipment. And they're basically preparing for something's about to happen.
Something's about to hit. Something's about to come against America.
Yeah. So we're in the front.
Sense of urgency.
Yeah, sense of urgency. You feel very like on edge.
Okay.
And so I look out the window, or I'm like look out the door, and I see a car coming up, and I immediately knew that it was Kim Jong-un.
So Kim Jong-un was at the White House, in front of the White House, in this prophetic dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we rush into this room, and then I look to see that there's former President Barack Obama was there, and I saw him. He was president
at the time. And so this has got to show you what's going to happen. Okay, so you're seeing former President Barack Obama. Okay.
Yes.
But this is why he was president. So what was going to happen? Okay.
Yeah. So then my other friend wasn't there anymore, so it was just me. So I looked at former President Barack Obama, and he looked at me with just fear all over his face, and he told me, help me, get out this place, help me. So I helped him out the window, and then he leaves me.
So he leaves the White House. He leaves out of a window.
Yep, and then he goes in a helicopter and leaves.
So all this, I mean, when all this crisis is about to hit America, former President Barack Obama gets in the helicopter and flies off.
Yep.
That's exactly what he did. When he left the White House, he got in the helicopter and he flew off the day that President Trump took over the office. That's interesting because now we're here right in the middle of this, because nobody thought this was going to happen with North Korea. But right now, we have a military fleet that's going out as we speak and is sitting off the coast of North Korea. They're threatening nuclear bombs to come on Japan, upon South Korea, upon America. And China's now getting involved. And this is why we're saying this, is because some people are saying that it's not that important. Kim Jong-un's not that important. God's going, he's so important. He was fixing to do something really bad to America. And our president's getting ahead of the ball, and he's dealing with it. It's so important because the Lord does speak to his church. He speaks to us. He says it in his the book of Amos, that he does speak and tells us in advance things that are going to take place. And that's why it's so important for when God allowed President Donald Trump to be president. At that point, he took the battle to North Korea. I believe that of all the things that former President Barack Obama said to President Trump that he was concerned about the most, what kept him up at night, was North Korea. And now we're looking at that thing escalate. But when we get back from this break, we're going to hear about Russia, because prophetically, God said China, Russia, and North Korea had a pact. Understand, if you see the border of North Korea, the northern border, it meets China and it meets Russia. Where is this poor country who has the lowest amount of electricity and lights in any country on the face of the earth, getting all this money for ICBMs and all? It's coming from somewhere. And we're just praying that that's going to be revealed and dealt with. As a matter of fact, when we get back from this break, we're going to hear what President Trump had to say about President Putin in Russia. Join us after the break. We have this wonderful, encouraging interview that lines up exactly what the Lord said in October 2016. Where the Lord said that President Donald Trump would be president and that he would be a friend of Christians. He'd be a friend of the church, and he definitely is. But God spoke to us specifically about Russia and China and North Korea. And this is his answer to the questions. What do you think about President Putin and what Russia wants? Let's go there now.
Well, he wants what's good for Russia.
Yeah.
And I want what's good for the United States.
Okay.
And I think, like in a case like Syria, where we can get together, do a ceasefire, and there are many other cases where getting along can be a very positive thing. But always Putin is going to want Russia, and Trump is going to want the United States. And that's the way it is. And sometimes you're not going to get along on things, and sometimes you will. But we had a good meeting. It was a face-to-face meeting. It was a long meeting. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah. Everyone was surprised by the amount of time, but that was a good thing, not a bad thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we got along very well, and I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, people said, oh, they shouldn't get along. Well, who are the people that are saying that? I think we got along very, very well. We're a tremendously powerful nuclear power, and so are they.
That's right.
It doesn't make sense not to have some kind of a relationship.
It makes sense if you're going to try to resolve world issues. And some of the things that Rick Joyner of Morning Star Ministries said, that Russia is going to take a more prominent role in the future of the globe and how it's going to handle things. And so, you know, maybe God's going to be shifting some different things that's taking place there. But I know if you see the president walking around, he has somebody following him with a briefcase. They call it the football, but it's actually the codes to be able to launch enough nuclear weapons to totally obliterate and destroy Russia or any other country. And it's called the Mutual Assured Destruction, or MAD. You hear them talk about it. And so that's why you're being real careful with American-Russian relationships, where people are talking about to just be a bow up or whatever.
You can't do that.
But North Korea is wanting to get nuclear weapons, so we'd have to be concerned about nuclear North Korea. And Iran's wanting to get it. So listen to what the president has to answer to the question in regards to mutual assured destruction, Russia and America, and what he has to say.
We used to have that thing called mutually assured destruction, MAD, and it's still there because he can hurt us. He can decimate our country, and we can do the same thing to him.
It's something you don't even like talking about, but again, we're the most powerful country in the world, and we are getting more and more powerful because I'm a big military person. As an example, if Hillary had won, our military would be decimated. Our energy would be much more expensive. That's what Putin doesn't like about me. And that's why I say, why would he want me? Because from day one, I wanted a strong military. He doesn't want to see that. And from day one, I want fracking and everything else to get energy prices low and to create tremendous energy. We're going to be self-supporting. We just about are now. We're going to be exporting energy. He doesn't want that. He would like Hillary, where she wants to have windmills. Okay? He would much rather have that because energy prices will go up, and Russia, as you know, relies very much on energy. So there are many things that I do that are the exact opposite of what he would want. So when I keep hearing about that he would have rather had Trump, I think probably not, because when I want a strong military, you know, she wouldn't have spent the money on the military, but when I want a strong military and when I want tremendous energy, we're opening up coal, we're opening up natural gas, we're opening up fracking, all the things that he would hate, but nobody ever mentions that.
Well, we mention it right here on VFNtv. This is so important and exciting when you see that we are I mean, you remember where we were in the last 8 years?
Listen, it was very depressing. I mean, you look at what was happening 8 years.
Can you imagine having a television program over the last years? It's like, hey, well, you know,
it's happening again.
It's happening again. And now we're actually I mean, God has shifted the world and America and our leadership to be able, we're exporters of the very thing that the previous administration said we didn't have enough of.
Listen, oil used to sell at $100 a barrel.
Right.
It was projected that Russia's economy was based on, 50% of their economy was based on it selling at 100. Everything has shifted. Saudi Arabia has to change, Russia had to change, Venezuela is starving, yet America is prospering.
As a matter of fact, check out right, this is President Trump speaking to the regards to us becoming energy independent, and we're actually shipping fuels out now to Europe. We're going to be a supplier of fuel. It's an amazing mindset, isn't it? It's good when you don't owe all these special interest groups and we have somebody that's been freed up. You're looking at definitely Jehu coming in and dealing with this stuff. Let's listen.
Gazprom held Europe by the throat. I mean, they were the monopoly, and now U.S. is breaking into that monopoly with our exports of LNG, right?
Right. We are. We have LNG exporting all over.
Yeah.
We have taken off some of the regulations that were making it impossible for the energy companies, impossible for banks, impossible for a lot of different things. You couldn't build a house in some places. And many of those restrictions have been taken off. Some are being taken off. We have statutory waits, meaning you have to wait a certain period of time. And the country is doing really well. So the stock market is the highest it's ever been. We have almost $4 trillion in gain, $4 trillion. I hope you're taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
But we have almost $4 trillion.
I'm into the market, believe me.
No, but when you think of that, that's
it's the Trump
creating
effect.
value.
Yeah.
We have a lot of tremendous things ready to go, tremendous projects all over the country. Don't forget, when I came in, one of my first acts was the Keystone Pipeline and the Dakota Access Pipeline. These two things got approved immediately. They would have never been built. And it's thousands and thousands of jobs. And it was, you know, look, it was my honor. To me, it was a no-brainer.
To me, it was a no-brainer,
That's
right? It really is. For a long time, we're thinking, like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Putting Americans to work, increasing the prosperity of the United
Providing
States.
our own oil, waste, transportation, work for our own people here. When you think about Cass Sunstein, you remember him in part of the previous administration? They hired him up, and he said, basically, you could regulate your way anywhere you wanted to go. You would write regulations and just one after the other. But guess what? Now we have a president in office, the Lord allowed to be in, this dismantling Cass Sunstein's regulations that he wrote all over the place that's been restricting business, and you got a little pond of water on your property. They call it a wetlands, and they would protect it, and people have gone to jail for with their own farm property and that type of thing.
Allegedly, President Trump has removed all these regulations, more regulations than any president ever.
And I believe the person that heads it up, I think they haven't got in yet. They just approved the person that's going to be heading this up to dismantling all these regulations.
Amazing.
Let's go. What does the president have to say about all these regulations that he's cutting? Check it out.
Just thousands. And what we've done is we've given the farmers back their land. We've given the home builders the right to put up a house. You know, you had cases where a farm would have a little puddle someplace, a puddle. You know, and when I grew up, we used to call it a puddle, right? You too, probably. And they considered it a lake. And if you touched it, bad things happened to you and your family. We've given the farmers back their farms. We have so many things planned in the future, too, with the tax cuts and the death taxes. We're ending the death taxes. I mean, there's so many things we have planned. But the farmers are so happy now. The home builders are happy. We have our most jobs ever in our country. Now we have to take care of those people that have given up looking for jobs. You know, you have a large group of people in this country that have given up. I would talk about them a lot in speeches.
Yeah, right.
They've given up looking for jobs. They're going to be looking very soon, and they're going to be getting those jobs.
That's so exciting. I mean, this is such a shift in mindset that's going on here. And all those regulations that restrain businesses, that restrain industry, they're being lifted, they're being freed. I mean, there's enough being left to be able to make sure we're safe, but it was being written for the wrong reason.
It hinders business.
Well, Cass Sunstein allegedly said, you know, nudge, I believe he wrote the book, The Nudge, which is about how to nudge a nation, nudge a people. by regulating all these different things, and down to the size of Cokes, where New York was saying you can't buy
a soft drink.
Can't buy a soft drink. Lord,
ridiculous.
That really happened, believe it or not. Well, we're getting freed up from all these regulations that are going on. It's an exciting thing. It's what the Lord showed me. The Lord showed me like Americans were like on a ship, and it was a luxury like cruise liner, but yet they were captive, almost like a slave ship, and they were oppressed. But then all of a sudden, God brought the boat in, and he let the people off, and some people stayed on the boat. They didn't realize that you've been set free. And all of a sudden, the people that understood that this is freedom. God has given us freedom. And the reason why the secular media is not covering this, because everything they plan to do to the country is being turned around, and they're basically disappearing.
Yeah.
And God is raising up a new media. He's raising up a new leadership. He's recapturing the heart of our nation again. And we're going to go right to the President Trump speaking about specifically the repeal and replace of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act's tax reform and infrastructure, beginning just to uplift our nation. And instead of spending $7 trillion in the Middle East, spend $2 trillion on building our infrastructure.
That's right.
This is very encouraging. Check it out.
Repeal and replace. I am sitting in the Oval Office with a pen in hand, waiting for our senators to give it to me. For years, they've been talking about repeal, replace, repeal, replace. I think they passed it 61 times, repeal and replace. But that didn't mean anything, because you had the minority, the Republicans. They didn't have the majority, so it wasn't going to get to the president. But if it ever did, Obama wasn't going to sign it, so it didn't mean. Now we have a president that's waiting to sign it. I have pen in hand. So now it means something. You know, those other times, those many, many times that they passed it.
What's the holdup?
You have very good people. These are very good people. We have 52 senators. It's very hard to get, you know, we need almost all of them.
Yeah.
You need almost all of them. And that's the holdup. And states are somewhat different. But with all of that being said, it has to get passed. They have to do it. They have to get together and get it done.
What will happen if they don't?
Well, I don't even want to talk about it, because I think it would be very bad. I will be very angry about it, and a lot of people will be very upset. But I'm sitting waiting for that bill to come to my desk. I hope that they do it. They've been promising it for years. They've been promising it ever since Obamacare, which has failed. It's a failed experiment. It is totally gone. It's out of business. And we have to get this done, repeal and replace.
Mitch McConnell is a tactician of great skill. Do you think he can pull it off? It's his job.
He's got to pull it off.
Yeah.
Mitch has to pull it off. He's working very hard. He's got to pull it off.
All right, the next thing is taxes. It looks like to me lowering the corporate tax to get us in line with the rest of the world is, again, a no-brainer. Can you get that one through?
I think after health care, taxes are going to be so easy. Health care is very hard. Health care is hard because you'll do something a little bit this way, and you'll pick up that final vote, and you'll lose 4 votes over here. Now you move it back. It's this very tiny little road. It's about 2 feet wide, and it goes throughout the country. So healthcare is much tougher than taxes. No, I think taxes are going to be very well. In fact, our plan is we're talking about massive tax cuts, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. We're going to get people back again. We're going to bring back $4 trillion from overseas, money that can't come back into this country because of our tax code.
Yeah.
We're going to bring back $4 trillion, could be more than that, from corporations that can't get their money back into our country. We're going to give a tremendous tax cut for the middle class. We're bringing it down to 10%. We're bringing corporate taxes down to 15%. I hope we can get that number approved. You know, maybe they'll want to do something and negotiate, but we will have, it'll be, if we get what we want, it'll be the biggest tax cut and the greatest tax reform in the history of our country.
Would you settle for the tax cut without reforming the whole tax code, or would that got to work in the whole thing?
Well, I think we can do them simultaneously. The code is too complicated.
Yeah.
H&R Block won't be happy. But, you know, I mean, people go out, they spend a lot of their money on getting other people to do their taxes.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah, I know, you understand. And it's unnecessary. Yeah. So simplification is very important. Reform is very important. And the biggest thing to me is tax cut. We are going for very large tax cuts for businesses and for the middle class. Tremendous tax cuts.
Chairman Brady is on board for what you want to do.
He's a great guy.
He'll line up. Have you got anybody in the Senate of like mind?
Well, first of all, Chairman Brady is a great guy.
Yeah.
And really knows the subject, and he'll never disappoint you. And so they're, I think, really good. In the Senate, I think we're going to do very well. Again, like health care, this is simpler than health care, believe it or not. But like health care, I think we're going to get it done. And then I want to go to infrastructure. We have to rebuild our country, our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our schools. We have to rebuild our country.
Exactly.
You know, we will have, in another few months, have spent $7 trillion in the Middle East. $7 trillion.
Yeah.
And then if you want to spend $2 on building a school in Iowa or in Pennsylvania or in Florida, they don't want to give you the money. But we've spent, in a very short period of time, we will be up to $7 trillion. How ridiculous is this? And here's what we got for it. Nothing. Nothing. The Middle East is a mess. Now, I'm there for one reason. We got to get rid of the terrorists. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the reason. And we're almost there. We have really made headway. We've made, as I said, we've made more headway in the last short period of time than they have ever before, by far, during this long period of time. But when you think that we will have spent $7 trillion, think of it. We've spent, as of a few months ago, we actually have spent $6 trillion in the Middle East. Pat, we have nothing for it, nothing. I want to rebuild our bridges and our roads. I have a friend who's a trucker, and he's very proud of his equipment. He buys very big, and he buys the best trucks. He's very proud of it. He said, in the past, you know, when we went from Los Angeles to New York, it was fine. Now, by the time he gets to New York, with all the problems on the roads and potholes, and he said, I got to fix my equipment all the time. He wants to go to a different level of truck, meaning downward.
Where do you go?
We have to fix our roads, and we have to fix our infrastructure. So infrastructure is very important.
Infrastructure is very, very important. This is so important what he's about to share, because God specifically taught to me and others, but I know for me, in October 2016, he said Donald Trump would be the next president. He literally showed me him in the White House. He showed me what former President Barack Obama would be doing, because he was actually talking to me about, you know, different things about this was good, that was good, kind of what he did in his tour. And I went and saw him in the White House. I saw the people get the White House back, but also a friend of Christians, the friend of the church, a friend of Israel. And the Johnson Amendment was an amendment put on by President Lyndon Johnson, because he was offended by a particular church that was speaking against him, which locked down the church in their mindsets that you couldn't say your opinion anymore. Prior to that, you could say whatever you wanted to say. Well, then IRS would try to come and shut you down. There's never been one church shut down of any history of all. It's just the threat of it. But he defunded that. The first thing he came in is he defunded the investigative wing of IRS to be able to investigate anybody for this particular offense that it says. But now he's talking to Pat Robertson about not only that, we want to take it to Congress, and we want to be able to totally eliminate that and just get it out of there, the Johnson Amendment.
That is great.
It is so important for your voice to be free. And President Trump saying he wants to hear from you. He wants to hear the Christian perspective. He wants to hear the rabbis and the ministers in the nation speak, and he wants to give us our voice back. Thank God for that. Let's check it out.
I'd like to make a prediction. If you get health care and tax reform, you're guaranteed another 4 years in office if you want it.
Well, then I'll see you at the inauguration.
I'm counting on it. Anyhow, well, I appreciate so much what you're doing. By the way, the evangelicals of America voted 83% in the last election for you. And I want you to know there are thousands and thousands of people praying for you all the time and holding you up.
The evangelicals were so great to me, and they did. They came out in massive numbers,
That's right.
And on top of that, I got 83%. But they came out in record numbers. They never came out like that. And we've really helped, because I've gotten rid of the Johnson Amendment. Now we're going to go try and get rid of it permanently in Congress. But I signed an executive order so that now people like you that I want to hear from, ministers and preachers and rabbis and whoever it may be, they can speak.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't speak politically before. Now you can. And I want to hear from you and others that we like. Franklin Graham. I had such Dr. Jeffress, Robert Jeffress, who is such a great guy, Pastor Jeffress. He used to go on television I didn't know who he was. I'd see him, and he was always speaking so well of me. And, you know, you have so many people that I want to hear from. Now they're going to be able to speak, and that's going to be a great thing for Christianity, believe me, a great, great thing. And it's a great thing for religion. You have a tremendous audience. You have people that I love, the evangelicals, and sometimes you say the evangelical Christians. But I do a lot of interviews with people because I can get the word out, because I'm treated very unfairly by the press, and you know it is what it is.
You don't mind if we ask you to take on heavyweights and not fight with lightweights anymore?
No, we want to fight.
The big guys.
We want to fight. We have to change. We have to bring our country back.
Yeah.
Our country was going in the wrong direction.
That's right.
You couldn't build. You couldn't do anything. Our country was going in the wrong direction. And by the way, what they were doing to religious liberty, they were destroying religious liberty.
That's right.
You will be saying Merry Christmas again very soon.
You'll be saying Merry Christmas again very soon. Destroying religious liberty. That's what we broadcasters have been saying. And that's why this mercy term was so important. It was so important what God did at the end of last year.
So it wasn't looking good at all.
It wasn't looking good all the way up until, and still,
night.
It was amazing what God had done. And now you're seeing this big turn, and you're hearing the positive things on VFNtv and others like CBN and others, but you just don't hear this on most of the secular media out there. But they're coming to a lower area in their future line, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching VFNtv. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. You know, a lot of people want to abide with the Lord, but they just don't have a plan to do it. You can request that plan today at iabide.org. Don't forget you can join us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download our app and sign up for our newsletter, The Torch, at VFNtv.com.